Hello and welcome everyone to the Nintendo Switch Online Game Club, the show where we play through the games available on Nintendo's various NSO apps completely at random. I'm your host, Derrick Bittner, and in this episode, I'm joined by SomeCallMeJohnny, YouTube reviewer who's always versing games for some reason. How you doing, Johnny?
I'm doing just fine. Thank you for inviting me to this shindig.
Of course. And found him somewhere off the internet, Gareth Spriggs, aka FTA, Sonic fan, all-around British guy, potentially homeless. I don't know. You might know him if you're aware of Johnny's content over on Brain Scratch and beyond.
Derrick found me on the street with a sign that says, "We'll talk about games for food," and he just brought me in. It's very nice.
Little do you know, I'm not feeding you.
He's not. I'm just talking about you're not upending your part of the bargain, Derrick. I'm talking about games. You ain't giving me no food.
Well, as both of you are likely aware, there are now over 200 games across the NSO, and while some are widely known like Super Mario Bros. And Zelda, there are some odd picks that could be considered hidden gems. We honestly don't know. So what we'll be doing is entering all those games into a randomizer, picking one, and then giving our initial thoughts. And this week, the Wheel of Games has chosen Kirby's Dream Land 2 for the Game Boy, our first-party Nintendo game on this show, somehow. We've been getting nothing but Genesis, I swear, or just random-ass games. But yes, we have a Nintendo game, we have a Sakurai game, and we have a Kirby game. There's a ton of Kirby on NSO, so it was bound to happen eventually. But what are our histories with Kirby's Dream Land 2? Gareth, let's start with you.
I've dabbled with it. I have the Kirby's Dream Collection for the Wii, but let's be real, I was mostly just replaying the first one, Adventure and Superstar. You know, I watched Johnny's review and he was just like, "Don't play this game, it's terrible." And I was like, yes, Mr. Johnny, yes, whatever. If I don't play the game, will you not cancel the Sucking Hana contest this year?
It's too late.
I fucked up that line, but we're not going to redo it. But,
nope. I'm keeping it.
But
and we're live, pal.
Damn it. I played it. I mean, it plays a lot like the original Dreamland, which was one of my favorite Game Boy games. But he has animal buddies you can ride on. Yeah. That is my answer. Good night, everybody.
Wow, that's all you know about Dreamland 2. Okay.
He can ride animals. 10 out of 10. Let's go.
What about you, Johnny? As Gareth mentioned, you have reviewed the game before on the channel. I don't know how long has it been since you've covered that, though. I can't.
It was a couple of years ago. I think it was 2018 or 19 that I looked at the game before.
What you were going to say? It was 20 years ago.
It was a 20. It's like, technically it would be that wrong. But I want to start with the small correction. Maybe a few fans have already corrected you in the chat. I don't think Sakurai had anything to do with Dreamland 2. I believe it was the first of what's known to be the Dark Matter trilogy, because all the villain was Dark Matter, like in different incarnations, but Sakurai, I think, had nothing to do with it. I don't know why I remember that bit the most, because I don't like that game. I'm going into this with pretty low expectations, because I recall not enjoying this game a whole bunch, outside of the potential quirkiness and fun you could have with the animal buddies. But that's it, though. It has been a while. I have not played the game since that review, and that was years ago. So hopefully it's better than I remember.
So
Johnny's just mad because there's all this talk of Dark Matter, and not once do you see Nibbler. Just like, this is the worst Futurama tie-in game I've ever played in my life.
I swear. I mean, other than the actual tie-in game, but yeah.
I like that game.
I never played it, so I have no opinion.
It never came to GameCube, but screw it. Futurama's on NSO now.
There we go. As far as me with Kirby, Dreamland 2 was my first Kirby game. I don't know how I got it. It was when I was of the age of my parents just picking out random games, and they saw Dreamland 2. I was like, here you go. I'm like, okay. And I remember enjoying it.
This has animals on it. You look stupid. Here, go play some Kirby.
This thing's cutish, I think. So here you go. Have this. But I remember enjoying it. I also remember never beating it as a kid because I could never figure out how to get the last rainbow drop in order to get to the final boss.
I think I know which one you're talking about.
And you know exactly which one I'm talking about. Granted, speaking of the Dream Collection, I finally did go back and play it when that came out, and had much less trouble finding it and actually doing it. What do you know? When you're not a stupid kid, it's a lot easier to do. I still have a lot of fondness for this game, but I have not played it since the Dream Collection. So it's definitely been a few years since I've touched that one. But I have nostalgia backing me on this one. This is like childhood right here. So I'm probably going to enjoy this one. I'll be honest. Like, it's Kirby. You might not like it, but trust me, I have played worse on this show already. You guys got off easy.
No, could you imagine?
We'd probably be in trouble if it was like Squeak Squad or like Amazing Mirror, like games that you're either just there or squandered by a formula that they didn't fine tune enough to be good.
I mean, I'll go you one better. Could you imagine if we would have gotten Phantasy Star 4 for the Sega Genesis?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, it dodged there.
Yeah, right. Nothing like another Genesis game and another RPG on the Genesis, right?
Subscribe to the Patreon and get access to the Discord so you understand these in-jokes.
Yeah. Gareth is nothing but in-jokes. So.
All I know, I'm just nothing but memes and references.
Oh, it's an interesting time for sure. But yeah, I don't think there's much prologue for this one because we know Kirby. Everybody kind of knows Kirby. God, I feel bad that I messed up the whole Sakurai connection because he goes over all of the games he covered in his YouTube channel. How did I forget this? So
isn't it for him? Isn't it just Dreamland, Kirby's Adventure, Superstar, and then like Air Ride?
Air Ride, yeah.
Those
are Air Ride was the last one he directed.
The only good ones.
I mean, Superstar, Planet Robot.
No, I said I love Kirby.
Yeah.
One of my favorite. Forgotten Land was just so good, such a good game.
But again, even Kirby has its downsides though, and I'm interested to see where this conversation ends up going after we tackle the game ourselves.
Yeah, I have a little fresher in our minds as we play through it. At the very least, by playing this, if you've forgotten the next Kirby game, you'll get some references from this because God, they love their references to the past games.
Yes, they do.
So. There we go. But yeah, I think unless we have anything else to say, we'll take a break here and play some Kirby's Dream Land 2 on the Game Boy.
The only thing I want to say is that I'm probably going to change my clothes before we come back and play it. So if I look different after we played the game, that's why. This is very seamless.
What a wonderful idea.
Very seamless.
Guys, let's all take a shower and let's all get dressed. And then we'll play some Kirby 2 and then we'll come back and talk about it. So after the break, if we look different, that's why.
I like the way this man thinks. We'll see you guys soon.
What are friends? Friends are there to pick you up when you're feeling a little down. Friends are there to rearrange someone's face when they're acting like a clown. Friends are a hamster, a fish, and an owl in Kirby's Dream Land 2. If you ain't fighting on their side, well, man, I'd pity you.
Kirby's back, and the Flappy One brought 3 rowdy friends. It's a punked-up, powered-up Kirby in Kirby's Dream Land 2. New for Game Boy and Super Game Boy.
Will you be my friend?
And we're back after a week of playing Kirby's Dream Land 2, our first actual Nintendo game as part of this NSO Game Club, Nintendo NSO Game Club. But does it actually hold up? Gareth, it's actually your first time playing this, so let's go ahead and start with you.
Fuck, have I got the change? Yeah, this was my first time playing it, and again, I dabbled with it slightly years ago on the Dreams Collection, and of course, Johnny with his infamous "This is the worst game ever made. I hate everyone who made it" video from a few years back. I came across not as angry as Johnny used to be. I think it's a pretty good game. I understand the criticisms, and I think part of me judging it is just because it does things. I think this game sets up things that future games, especially Superstar and 64, just do so much better than this. And so it's kind of like I'm as Thanos would say, I'm cursed with knowledge of the future. So like it's like why would I play this game when I can just go play Superstar and it's like 1,000 times better?
Wait, that's a compliment? Because you're making the argument as why you shouldn't play it. That's what I'm saying.
It's not, yeah, but it's like I think unto itself, it's a good game. I think it does a lot of, in terms of a sequel, I think it's up there with like, because it's like, cause after I finished Dreamland 2, I went back and I played Dreamland 1, and Dreamland 1 is like the length of the first world in Dreamland 2.
It is,
So like
yeah.
in terms of like pure content, Dreamland 2 blows one out of the water. There's so many more levels, more bosses. There's more power-ups, the animal friends and stuff. But again, it's not as fun as something like Adventure, because I think this came out after Adventure, if I remember correctly.
Yes,
It's
it did.
Dreamland, Adventure, this. Even based on that, I'm like, Adventure is so much more fun than Dreamland 2 is to me. But again, I won't go as far as Johnny and say it's a bad game. It's just one that's it's probably one of the weaker Kirby games, I think, or at least of the ones I played. But it's not a bad game.
Yeah. Johnny, has your opinion changed at all? Or are you basically the same as your old review?
He didn't bother playing it over the week. He just rewatched his review video.
I did like immediately after we did the first part. I did go back to my review because I don't remember what exactly I said about Dreamland 2 specifically. So I went back to it, and yeah, I was pretty negative about the whole thing, and I call a lot of people in the comments off guys, but that's my favorite thing about these videos. I was like, wow, he's mean to this game.
What a
and I was
jerk.
like, yeah, it is like, but you have to understand, I'm coming into this game well after playing Dreamland 1, Adventure, a lot of other Kirby games, Superstar, which means like pinnacle Kirby for me, and to go to this one, which is like prototypical Dark Matter trilogy game. It's the first game of this series, and what I see is just a heavily neutered Kirby for the sake of putting emphasis on his like animal pals, and they're okay. Like I like Ku the bird. I think he's still the best one.
The only good one.
And Kine, that was the name of the fish, right?
Yes, Kine.
Outside of the water is basically Frog Super Mario 3, and I hate it. And like they're fine in the context of where they excel, and that's cool. But I don't like the limitations placed on Kirby himself to emphasize. I never like that when video games do that. And Rick, I'm still not convinced by Rick. Like it's like you're right.
What does he do?
You're like, that's the thing, right? Like thank you for
what
saying that.
What is Rick's power up?
Like
what is Rick's power up?
Rick allows you to do certain things with other power ups that Kirby could do naturally in the other games, but you need him for other things like the fireball and the flamethrower attack. He also he's immune to certain terrain, if I recall correctly. Like he doesn't slip on ice or anything like that, which doesn't mean anything because like it's not as if there are moments, and correct me if I'm wrong, there are no other moments in this game where utilizing Rick can bypass something way easier or faster than you could with just Kirby alone. That wasn't like designed around like Rick's abilities. Like you're gonna use Rick for the Rick section, but outside of that, he's useless. I'm sorry, guys. I hate to be the villain for this one, but it's like
the most memorable part for me is when you're going downhill a lot. You can have Rock Rick. And it's a lot faster and you destroy everything.
Way better than Pickle Rick, I agree.
Yeah, nobody talks about that one.
Well, I didn't want to say about the Rick roll exactly. Yeah, but yeah, so I'm coming at this after having grown up with this game. This was my very first Kirby, so I have a lot of fondness for this game and the animal buddies and all that it entails. And I remember spending a lot of time playing this game, but never being able to get the true ending. It just was never able to pull it off. I could not get all those rainbow drops and just got frustrated, but I would replay it constantly. So like maybe this time around I'll find it and think of the right way to do it and make it happen. And then I came back to it as part of the Dream Collection and properly beat it then, saw the ending. I'm like, yes, that was a good time. I remember that. But for some reason, this time around coming back, I started noticing a lot more of the flaws. The stuff with Rick, as you said, the general, like getting annoyed by the fact that you lose your power after one hit, which is a common thing for the early Kirby games. It's just what it is. But also, yeah, the animal buddies are not, are fine. They're adorable. You love them as a kid because they're just cute and whatnot. But they also had another effect that I completely forgot about. They changed the music. You have the standard level music, but you get one of them and you always go to their music. And I'm like, why?
So it's like, it's not even dynamic in a sense, like how Yoshi added drums in Mario World.
Yeah.
Where in this case, it's just a completely different track. Which I mean,
it's just their song.
If the track itself is a banger,
they're
then
good.
It's fine.
They're
but it's
all
like
good.
I really like that stage theme though.
Yeah, I like to hear the variety of the stage themes.
They have what I think we could just call the supersonic effect.
Yeah. I don't want to transform.
At least we got 3 variations in this case.
Get that 9-second music clip and Sonic Food. I don't want to transform anymore.
But yeah, the other thing I noticed is maybe I had more tolerance as a kid apparently, but is it just me or is this game surprisingly tough? Not like tough, but tough for a Kirby game.
It's tough for a Kirby game if you decide to go after all the rainbow drops. And by the final world, oh my god, like I don't know who was the level designer for this off the top of my head, but they just gave up by the 7th world.
Yeah.
And it has like some surprisingly punishing like gimmicks for a Kirby game. I gotta have to stress for a Kirby game. Like in any other platform,
it's all in terms of a Kirby.
Yeah.
You know, I will actually say that I think in World 7 there's I can't remember if it's one level or just this happens multiple times across the world, but those like auto scrollers where you have to like. No, I think those are pretty punishing for just a 90s platforming in general.
Yeah.
I think those were specific, especially when it's like there's 3 tiers and only one can progress.
That's the thing.
I would say, thank
we
Christ
have
for
no idea which one's going to be the right one.
Thank God for the NSO Rewind faction.
We're going to put an auto scroller with dead ends that'll kill you in a game with a very tiny resolution. It's like, are you high? It's like, this is not fun. I'm not enjoying this. It's kind of creepy though, because I remember like if you choose the wrong path, like there's a block formations that form a skull and crossbow. It's like, oh, I guess I'm dying now because I
sit and wait for your death of space.
That comes for us all.
And despite that, I did not rewind as much as Gareth did.
Oh, I did. I rewound so much. I ain't got time. Or I got a full-time job and 2 kids. I ain't got fucking time to play this game all day.
I get you. But I was trying to maintain it because the pride thing is like I played this as a kid. I can do what I did as a kid. Let's do this. But
I have no pride in any aspect of my life left. I could not care less how many video games I cheat at these days. I don't care.
Right. But despite that, the whole point is, despite that, I still ended up finishing the game with 33 lives. Like it's
10 minutes before we start recording.
They toss out lives like crazy.
But the thing is though, like if you're using the rewind feature and all that sort of thing, isn't lives irrelevant at that point?
True.
Like, because you're going to rewind anyway. So I would just. It's like, oh, look at all the things I collected via time travel. I'm
beat the game on one life.
It does make those rainbow drop pickups where you have to hold on to a power for a certain amount of time much easier.
Yeah, I wouldn't have had the patience for that if not for the rewind function. I want to say the one in World 5 when you have to. I will say there's one I do like some of the animal buddies themselves aren't the best. I do like in certain levels, like when you get the rainbow drop in World 5, how that's one level that requires you to go through all 3 animals in that level to get to the rainbow. Stuff like that I enjoy. Like I think that's pretty fun. But I think as Johnny said, like if just on a normal level, unless you're underwater, just forget that fish, and like Rick doesn't do much. Ku, again, I think as Johnny said, I think Ku is the only one that I think has, even without, I'm going to assume the bird's a girl for some reason, even without her special, like, even without needing her to progress in the game, she's the only one who I like, if I found her, I'd be like, yeah, all right, I'll take the bird. Like, I love Kirby's face looks like he's being mauled. Look at his face when she has. I love the animations in this game. And again,
the animations are fantastic.
So good. The best thing about having the fish is doing stone or cutter, because that fish just wants to die. As soon as Kirby transforms inside him, it's like, just kill me now, please. Like, it's great.
There are so many animations where Kine is just being tortured, and it's amazing.
For some reason, in the intro for World 7, when there's the castle, it's like the bird flies off, Kirby jumps on Rick, and like for no reason, knocks the bird off, like the fish down, and the fish is like, what did I do? Just walk off. Like, although one thing I noticed, because after I finished Dreamland 2, I went back and I did Dreamland 1. One thing I kind of missed from the first game is there's no like in-level... Well, for one thing, there's no like warp star transitions in the game at all, like in the levels, which I thought was kind of missing. But like
Weird, yeah.
Kirby, Dreamland 1 occasionally would have those like very small like cinematics of like Kirby like go down from a warp zone, landing like a whale's blowhole and get blown up. I missed some of that in Dreamland 2. Also, something that I thought was very weird was when you defeat the boss, Kirby does the triple dance before you grab the star. And I think that's the only game where the dance happens before you've collected the thing that makes you dance. I'm like, what are you doing, Kirby?
It's like, what are you celebrating for? You haven't grabbed the MacGuffin yet.
I mean, you murdered someone. Congratulations. You
man.
haven't stolen his stuff yet. Like, come on.
Speaking of the bosses, I think they're all generally good. I also like the returning bosses, how they're already finding ways to have variations on them. I completely forgot that Wispy Woods is sick in this game, so he has a mask over.
I thought he had COVID. I was like, why is he wearing a mask?
He's not feeling well, and you still beat him up and you go past him.
It's like, oh, that's a shame.
The best though is that DDD's asleep when you fight him.
DDD's asleep
That
when
is
you
like
fight
the
him.
funniest thing ever. He just
wakes up and he's pissed.
And then he just like throw his hammer for no good reason.
Like, I think we might be the bad guy.
We're always the bad guy.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Then I really enjoyed Krako's variation. I completely forgot that he hides underground, and then you get a second variation where he sends out the little Krakos in order to fight you. I was like, oh,
that was
that's
good.
neat.
That was good.
That's fun.
One thing I didn't love, and this is something that you and I talked about, Derek, before we started, is that it feels like compared to Dreamland and Adventure, and I want to say Superstar, the bosses have like a weird health bar where you can attack them sometimes and it won't even go down a little bit. Which it's no other Kirby game I can think of has that at all. And so I feel like sometimes I think some of the bosses could have benefited from, even though it's still a fairly easy game, like less energy, or at least every time you hit them it goes down. Because it feels like sometimes like you're twatting them and nothing happens. And it's like, if this was Dreamland 1, you'd be dead by now. So like, come on, mate, I got stuff to do. Like, come on.
I noticed that as well. It really seemed to emphasize using the Kirby's suck and shooting out stars abilities.
The suck and
Good
blow.
old suck and blow, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I wasn't trying to suck and blow. I didn't want to say suck and blow, but suck and blow.
Kirby's best out, my friend.
Yeah. But yeah, shooting that out always guarantees a blip off. And it's the fastest way to take them out, unless you have one of the powers that you can just spam. Then it's a little bit faster, and that's when you have the advantage. But when you don't have that, you might be there a little while, and often I'll get hit, and I'm just like, screw it, I'll take the star and just do some, like, there's 3 ticks of health or whatever. And
it doesn't hurt. It doesn't help that, again, to reemphasize a point I made in my video, that Kirby himself is neutered. In this, for the sake of emphasizing the friends. So individually, there's not many power-ups to choose from.
Only 6.
There's only 6.
I think it's only 6.
There's 6 or 8 around one of those. There's still like
7.
Stone, Spike, Cutter, Fire, Ice,
Parasol,
Electric, Parasol.
Parasol.
And
Which I
then
think, remember that was like the best ability to pair with Ku. Because you just spun in place and you're invincible the entire way. It's honestly, like, of all the animal buddies, it has to represent, like, Ku is amazing. Like, Ku was legit the best animal buddy of the 3.
MVP.
Because
him
not
and
only
Cutter,
was
great
it
stuff
it augmented Kirby's natural abilities, but it was also great out of context of Ku's like gimmicks. Ku felt great to use even when you weren't needed to use them.
Yeah, totally.
But unfortunately, when you don't have an animal buddy and you're stuck with Kirby for boss fights or whatever, like, there's not much Kirby can do because they limited his potential. You went from like 20 plus powers from Adventure to this game. It's like, what a downgrade. And that's how I'm approaching this. Like, I did not grow up with this game.
I get that, but I mean,
the benefit of this. But I'm comparing this, like, does this game hold up today? Like, it's not a matter of just like, no, you have to put yourself in this chamber and pretend these other games don't exist, except for, okay, but the other 2 games beforehand do, and Adventure especially is just miles better than this game. And which is why I just view it as a downgrade in almost every sense of the word.
How much of that, though, Johnny? How much of that, though, is, to be somewhat fair to Nintendo, or how much of that do you think, though, is because of the Game Boy? Do you think it's like a memory? Do you think it's because of the Game Boy they weren't able to fit as many, or do you think they viewed, because each animal does slightly alter how the power-ups work. Do you think they were like, if we keep it shorter but give it its own variation, that'll make up for it?
It is absolutely intentional.
It feels intentional because you see them do the same thing with Dreamland 3, which I've never beaten Dreamland 3 because I find that game far too slow, and that's where I feel the limitations.
But bland as hell.
It's on the same system. Yeah,
it puts you to sleep.
Yeah, it's on the same
Kirby's
system.
Dreamland. What do you expect?
Oh gosh,
I spent money on this though.
But it is interesting to come from that perspective as a kid, having no context of anything else. On its own, not knowing anything, you can have fun with the game. The game on its own is fun. There's just better Kirby games.
There's just better Kirby games. Yes. Like the game is more than playable.
Totally.
It's just I'm not going to recommend it to you because I myself don't think it's anything special. There are much better Kirby games after this, before this, and there are much better games in the Dark Matter trilogy, like Dreamland 3 and 64. I think 64 was probably the best one, even though that game is also slow as hell.
Yeah, but for some reason
I won't hear a bad word against
64.
64. I love 64.
Give it to me. Like, all the sweet viewer engagement. Thanks for the comments, idiots.
Yeah. Yeah, I still really enjoy it, and it's fun that you can get like this, actual ending. Like you got your, either if you don't get all the rainbow drops, you just beat DDD and it's over, or if you do get all of it, you get that fight against Dark Matter, and it's again a tough fight. You don't have that limitation.
The ending is just Kirby falling to his death. That's really kind of what the ending looks like. He's just falling and he kind of goes, oh shit.
Yeah, it cuts to the FMV of Kingdom Hearts opening. The swords going through the water. It's like, oh, I didn't know this game was a prequel.
Oh gosh. But yeah, it's I understand its weaknesses, especially coming back to it this time, but it's hard for me not to have a soft spot for it. The animations, there are some fun levels. It's also really interesting, like the first 3 worlds are basically like, okay, we're going to teach you how to play Kine. Okay, now we're going to teach you to play Ku. Okay, now we're going to teach you to play Rick. I forgot about Rick. And then it's like, okay, now we're going to open it up and you can have more levels per world and do all these other things, combine and do that, which is interesting for me. I think it worked for as a kid to just get the hang of what Kirby can do.
Like even then, it's like whether you played it or not growing up, if you like the game, you end up liking the game. And I'm not gonna I'm not gonna pass judgment on that. I have a soft spot for Dreamland 1, and that game is over in 10 minutes. And has next to no replayability outside of extra mode. But it's still like you can have.
This doesn't have a hard mode though. The game is longer, but it has less replayability, I think.
I don't think it needs a hard mode.
It's really an extra mode because of the last world.
I would actually say just Kirby's Dreamland 2 on its own is harder than Kirby's Dreamland 1 hard mode.
Okay. I've never played hard mode on Dreamland 1.
Except for Wispy Wood. He's a bastard in hard mode.
That's why he's sick. He's like,
I'm still recovering from the last beatdown.
Kirby sneezed on him and now he's sick. Oh shit. I want to say based on also like one of the things, because it's obviously I want to say a lot of the team who worked on Dreamland 1 aren't involved, because I want to know the soundtrack isn't by Jun Iwashika, and I feel like just compared to like Dreamland 1, Adventure, Superstar, it's not I won't say it's bad, but it's nowhere near as memorable. Although a few of the tracks I want to say are remixed in Superstar, I think like like the World 3 or World 4, it becomes one of the level themes, I think, in Dynablade in Superstar.
If I recall correctly, like most of the music in Dreamland 2 ends up only getting remixed in the Dark Matter games. So
maybe it's 64 I'm thinking of. It's one of them. I know like it
probably
gets
64 if I had to guess.
Yeah.
It's not a bad sound. It sounds Kirby-ish. I think Kirby is one of those franchises that just has a very distinct style. Even like no matter who's doing the soundtrack, so it definitely has that Kirby style. I think a lot of the tracks aren't as memorable as like Adventure. Although I will say in the credits, I do think it's funny that Miyamoto and Iwata get thanked in the special thanks, but Sakurai's not mentioned at all.
Sakurai's nothing to do with this.
But like I doubt Miyamoto did much, because he's never really been that hands-on with Kirby, but he got like a special thanks, and the guy who made Kirby is like, fucking ninja. They don't talk back trilogy. They don't need you, Sakurai.
He won't go in and do anything.
Go make a racing game, then quit the franchise, you bitch. Go on.
Oh gosh. I like it, but I'm trying to think of other things to really say about it. I do like that we continue to have the little introduction scenes. Again, the presentation of this game is phenomenal.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
I love it.
Well, this is something Kirby never really faltered with, though, from the get-go. And Dreamland 2 was just all I had to do was just do this again, like on the console again, and that's fine.
Right.
Yeah.
Again, that's one thing I will give it credit for, because it really feels like, even though it's called Dreamland 2, in a lot of ways it feels more like a follow-up to Adventure, just in the sense that now instead of like, in Dreamland 1, every world was just one level, and obviously in Adventure it had the world maps and you had the different levels, doors you can go into. In that way, it feels more like an adventure game than Dreamland. But as I said earlier, it's just like it's this. I think there's something missing in the level design, because I think graphically it's there, musically it's not as good as Dreamland or Adventure, but it's still Kirby-ish. But I think a lot of the level design, it doesn't feel like a. To me, like, especially after replaying Dreamland 1, a lot of the level design in Dreamland 2 doesn't necessarily feel like it's a Kirby game. It feels like it's just a platformer that they've put Kirby into. If that makes sense.
I noticed that a few times. Like some of those auto scroll levels in World 7, the non-maze ones, you do get the sense that it's like it's just easier to jump from one to the next, because I kept forgetting not to hit. I had to hit up in order to inflate, and not a second time. So I got thrown off a lot early on.
And like the pipes that blow water, that felt to me so much more like a Mario level than Kirby. Because Kirby, like, that's in terms of underwater. There's at least what I can remember in terms of classic Kirby. There's very little underwater segments where they're just pushing you. Like from one side of the screen to the other. That to me feels way more like a Mario gimmick.
No, because even comparatively speaking, like Adventure had underwater areas, but you were completely autonomous the entire way. Like you swam at your leisure.
I think
it's funny you say, like, I didn't really think about that, but now that I'm like thinking about it like deeper, I wonder if like the original plan wasn't a Kirby game at all, but rather a game that just starred these animal friends, and then they realized that we can't really find a way to mend these three together. And then someone probably said, well, Kirby's not doing anything right now.
I mean, that's typically how Kirby ends up in games. It's like, well, Kirby might fit into this. It's just the origin of that.
You know what? Kirby ain't done shit for us in 2 years. Come on, pick the boy up, turn the lights and
I could see that. I could see that.
Because Dreamland 1 was what, 92? Adventure 3, or was Adventure 93 or 94?
Actually, I think Dreamland Game Boy was 91. I want to say
91. Okay.
And Adventure was 92 or 93.
That surprised me, because Dreamland 2, it's a 95 game, which for original Game Boy, that's surprisingly late. Well,
it's like a little bit before Pokemon.
Pokemon was like mid 90s to late 90s, and they rode that train until the 2000s before the Advance came. So, but that's something new for Kirby. Like Kirby games, from my recollection, I might be wrong on this, were always released pretty late into a console's lifespan.
They tended to be. Like there might be one earlier on, but then there's like, here's your big Kirby game, but it's like right at the end of the console's life.
Yeah, it was like Dreamland 3, I think was 97 or 98. Like this was 2 years after the N64 was already out. I was like,
I want to say Dreamland 3 is like I don't think it's the last, but I think it's one of the last first party Nintendo games for the Super Nintendo. Because I think it's just, not so much now, but I think especially in like the 2D era, Kirby's were some of the games that like pushed its hardware to the limit. Because again, I think of like an Adventure and in Butter Building, when there's that semi like parallax in 3D. And it's like, what other NES game had that? Like how laboratories were like wizards when it came to making these games back in the day. Because they even still like, because I played 2 and then played 1, and graphically like they look pretty similar, but 2 has like a lot more detail and a lot more animation, and it's like compared to 1, 2 it's almost insane how much more is just crammed into that cartridge.
It also benefited from having Super Game Boy capabilities as well. If you, assuming you're not emulating it nowadays, or you legit have a Super Game Boy in your garage somewhere, but if at all possible, if you're deciding to play this game, play Super Game Boy, because I believe the extra colors and stuff really do make a lot of the level design pop out for better reasons instead of just like the grayscale, which I don't really like.
Yeah, I've not tried it myself, but I mean, I set it the Game Boy Color for the NSO, so it gets it across. But of course, it's not.
Why does
the
the NSO not have Super Game Boy?
That's a good question.
Like, you guys
I
made the
know.
thing. Come
I don't know why they don't like
easy.
to acknowledge it. It's
Why doesn't
weird.
it have Pokemon Red? Because they're idiots.
You're not wrong.
I don't care that you give us 1,000-year door, all right? Give us Pokemon Red, please, for free.
Wake me up when there's real news.
Yeah, right. Do we have anything else to say? Because obviously it's not a super long game. It's what, 4 hours at most.
It is not the best game of the Dark Matter trilogy. I think you should just play Dreamland 3 if you want to stick to those 3 games specifically.
I would say 64.
Or your
but-
64 is probably the better comparison. Again, like the only reason why I say Dreamland 3 specifically, because my major complaint was 64. Not to make this a 64 discussion,
that's
but 64 was just too slow for me. And Dreamland 3, don't get me wrong, it puts you to sleep too. But I think it has a much better aesthetic. And I recall some animal buddies just allowing you to speed things up just for the sake of like brevity, just move along. Like Kirby 64, it's a joyride, but it's also like a screensaver at times too.
I'll counter that. In Kirby 64, he can run. He can't run in Dreamland 2. So it's
But you can run in Dreamland 3 though. I think you can run in Dreamland 3. Yeah,
There you go,
I
there
will
you go.
say though, that's what I was expecting when I first got Rick. I was expecting him to be able to run or give me a double jump.
Yeah.
And again, to go back, like, what is your purpose, Rick? What do you do? Nothing.
You never
know?
think about it as a kid, but you're right. It's he's only there to give variations to powers, and some of them are decent.
and to
but
like
they're-
And
ignore
more
certain
hits.
terrain. Like I
I
think, but it's
normally
also,
use
like,
the
I can't fly. I can't use all these other power ups, and your gimmick is really not that special. I'm sorry. Like, I made a gag in my video where it's like, I'm sure he means well and tips the waitress very well, but I just don't see the appeal of Rick. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Well, with that, I believe we've said all we've wanted to say about Kirby's Dream Land 2.
Oh no,
but-
wait, I'm sorry. Derrick, I have one more note.
Okay.
Let me say now. Upon death, DDD does not make his trademark death scream. 0 out of 10. Worst game of the day. Where's the
You should have stayed possessed.
they definitely kept up the they continued the trend of DDD getting possessed.
Yeah.
Like Adventure started.
This starts it, I think.
I thought
Yeah,
Adventure.
Adventure-
I thought
Because in
Adventure
Dreamland
started.
one, he's just-
Adventure. Adventure just started. Adventure. That was the twist. The twist was
Oh,
that
right, you
he's-
thought
He
DDD.
wasn't possessed.
He thought DDD
In
was the
D-
best.
Yeah, in Dreamland 1, DDD's just a dick who steals food. In Dreamland 2, DDD's a good guy trying to stop Nightmare from getting
Adventure.
Yeah,
Adventure.
Adventure-
He's trying to get the warp star, and then in this one he's just sleeping. He ain't doing nothing to nobody.
He got possessed. He's asleep. And
Slaps
he,
him around the face.
Kirby's like, I think I'll cause problems on purpose today.
I will say though, DDD's that penguin's a deep sleeper because Kirby's twatting him around, and he's just like.
well, he
"Well,
wakes
I'm
up and he
still
gets
sleeping."
pissed and he gets much more powerful. So
Yeah.
It's still while sleeping. That's the funny thing. Like,
How is he the bad guy here?
he's not
no one's
usually-
doing nothing to nobody.
Dark Matter. I'll give it this though. Like it did give us Dark Matter, and Dark Matter I think is probably one of the more notable Kirby villains just because of how cosmically evil it is. Like just like
Yeah.
I mean, it starts as early as this game because like everyone thinks of like the Mono Eye and that sort of thing, but everyone immediately also compares to Dreamland 3 and 64, especially where it's just like this is a Final Fantasy boss, my guy. It's like what is this? This is not Kirby. But we have
is that
Dreamland
the
2 to
same-
think about that, so in that way it's notable.
So is Johnny then the guy you fight with the sword in Dreamland 2 is that technically the same creature as
It's the same
02
guy.
and 64?
Well,
Okay.
that's, I
just
don't know
keep-
about that, but it is definitely a prototypical form of it.
Yes.
I think it's the only game to reference that form specifically because I think like starting with Dreamland 3, correct me if I'm wrong, they just like after the DDD possession, it just goes right to the Mono Eye. Like it doesn't have like the pulled back hair or the sword or the cloak.
God,
that
yeah.
I recall.
Yeah.
So, but
Have you?
So yeah, I think I think that's still unique to Dreamland 2 off the top of my head.
Have you played Dreamland 3, Gareth?
Again, I like with Dreamland 2 before this. I've dabbled with it in
so you've
the
not
Dreamland
seen
collection.
the variation of DDD's possession in that game.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
I don't think I want to spoil it, but holy.
If they have,
Is it worth me playing to see that?
Low key, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, then I'll play it.
It is,
but I don't want to overhype it.
Yeah,
but if you've never seen it before,
it'll catch you off
think
guard.
you'll catch you off guard. Yes.
Okay. Is Dreamland 3 on the NSO?
Yes.
I believe so.
Yeah.
But if not, just
I think
Okay.
most
If not, I'll
Kirby
just play
games-
Superstar instead.
Well, it's also on your Dream collection, so you have that if you want to.
Yeah,
hook up
that's
your,
true. Yeah,
your
yeah.
Wii.
But I gotta
or Wii
hook
U.
up the Wii, and I can't rewind if I die a lot. So it's like,
Well, there, fair. But all right, now I think we've said all we wanted to say about Kirby's Dream Land 2. But of course, we got to make this official and give a final verdict. So, would we recommend it as an NSO or tell people to stay away with an NO? Johnny, let's start with you.
I'd say, personally, no, and no, because I don't enjoy the game. I think your time is better spent playing better Kirby games.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, it's part of the NSO. You already paying for that subscription. It literally costs you nothing extra to play it for yourself and see if you enjoy it or not. Worst case, you just wasted time. But time is finite. You only have so much of that in your life, and I'd rather you spend that playing something you may enjoy. So I don't recommend this game. I just don't think it's a very good Kirby game, let alone a 2D platformer.
Yeah. And what about you, Gareth?
Johnny just made me realize my own mortality. What am I doing with my life? I would honestly do the NSO because I do think while there are better Kirby games, I don't think that detracts from it. If you look at it in a vacuum,
No.
I still think it's a pretty decent game, and it's probably better than, especially for like the maybe not Game Boys, but like a lot of the like. I think Kirby's Dream Land 2 in terms of the NSO library is worth your time more than a lot of the crap, especially on the NES side of NSO.
Yeah.
So if you were to rank them, I think Dream Land 2 would probably end up in like the top half of the entire catalog. But again, it's like I think it's in many ways it's an important game in the Kirby franchise because it introduced a lot of elements that would be refined and improved on later on. And if you've never played it, I would, again, as Derrick said, you can complete it in like an afternoon. I don't think if you don't want to trouble yourself getting the Rainbow Charge, I don't think the Dark Matter boss fight is worth. I think it's a worse version of the Nightmare fight from Adventure. So I'm like, if you played Adventure before and you don't care about, especially getting the Rainbow Shards in World 6 and 7, I'm like, just kick DDD's ass when he's sleeping and call it a day. Like it's a fun game.
What a jerk.
It's a fun game, but it's not like an amazing game. But I would still recommend it.
Okay. I'll agree with Gareth here and give it an NSO. I understand it definitely has its issues, certainly compared to later Kirby games, but there are things introduced here that, as Johnny said, it's already free. Trust me, I've played worse games on this service already. Yeah. Much worse games that are as Johnny says, time is finite. Save yourself. This, I think, is worth playing. Is this the best
game you've played, Derrick? Is this the best game you've played so far on NSO?
I have not determined that yet. I will have to take a look. It might
end
be
of the year tier list idea. There you go.
I might. I've been going along I've been doing it as I go along, so I have to consider it. But it's definitely in the upper echelon for sure of what I've gotten so far. But I think, whether in a bubble or just looking at it from a history perspective, if you're a Kirby fan and you haven't tried it before, there's a lot of elements here that originated with this game, and seeing those, where they began is always a lot of fun. Yes, it's limiting Kirby's a bit more limited because of the animal buddies being there, but seeing the different variations of the animal buddies torturing Kine, it's always fun. There's it's a good time, but you will find frustration. But that's the beauty of the NSO. If you get too frustrated, you have the rewind. That's,
Or play something else.
Or play something else.
Or just smash it over your knee. Switch is pretty flimsy. Just smash that bastard.
There you go. Perfect. But what about all of you? Have you played Kirby's Dream Land 2 before, or was this your first time? But before we go, where can everyone find you at? Johnny, plug yourself.
As always, you can find me on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/SomeCallMeJohnny. I also utilize my Let's Play channel with my brother Elliot, my friend Matt, and my uncle Greg. Over at SGB Likes to Play, youtube.com/SGB Likes to Play, Super Gamer Brothers, basically. I also live stream on Twitch on weekends when I have the time, over at twitch.tv/SomeCallMeJohnny. Yeah, if you want to see me just like scream my ass off for games that frustrate me, catch me there.
There you go. What about you, Gareth?
You can. It's a few years old, but you can catch me on a little channel called Brain Scratch Comms. I've been there a few times.
Oh.
Johnny's never heard of it before. No, you can find me. Most of I'm at TheRealFTA on most social platforms, including YouTube. But I haven't done anything with that channel yet, and I probably won't know in me. But yeah, that's.
I believe in you, Gareth.
Yeah.
Aww.
You're
How
fun
about
to
you,
have
Derrick?
around, for sure.
Let's go.
Derrick, where can people find you?
Sleep.
Mr. Game Explain, where can they find you?
Oh, you bet. All right, well, Gareth is never coming back.
Yeah,
I said the
I was putting another blacklist, baby.
So check out the Golden Bolt.
Yeah, there you go. Watch the Golden Bolt. That's the real takeaway from all this. But yes, thank you both for joining me. And if all of you lovely viewers enjoyed this episode, let us know in the comments, and please consider supporting us at patreon.com/GVGaming, Good Vibes Gaming, which includes our live audience tier that will allow you to watch Game Club live as it's being recorded, which includes me killing Gareth after this recording is over. So enjoy that. But even just subscribing and hitting the bell helps us a ton. But now it's time for the Wheel of Games to choose next week's title, as I'm joined by my special guests, Ant Dude and Miss Fushi. Are you both ready to see what game we're playing?
I have no choice. Let's go.
Yeah, decide my future.
Yes. I'm bringing up the Wheel of Fate right now. There it is, ready to go. Let's spin the Wheel of Games and see what we're going to get this time. This has been heavily favored in Genesis. Let's see if that continues. And it continues.
Okay.
No, it does not. I'm sorry. We got an SNES game. Tough Enough. Tough Enough for the Super Nintendo. I believe that's a beat 'em up.
Okay.
Ooh,
So
Tough Enough.
that should be interesting. So
All right.
yeah, there you have it. We'll see you next time as we cover Tough Enough for the SNES. Thanks for watching, and until next time, bye.